what's going on, everybody? Dr. Sis here. So in today's public health briefing, I want to talk about animal crackers because anytime I'm around a group of kids, I see these things everywhere, all the time, right? And some people actually tell parents that these are a healthy snack, and then parents believe that these are a healthy snack and give them to their kids on a regular basis. And this is something I would never give my kids, all right? And I'm gonna explain exactly why they're bad based on the ingredients. Now, there's a thing I like to refer to as the devil's triad or the devil's trident, you know, the fork with the three spikes. And there's three things. It's like steroids for fat gain and heart damage, artery damage. Like there's three foods that are terrible for you, and that is refined grains, processed seed oils, and added sugars. And when those things are combined, it's absolutely terrible for you, okay? So back to these animal crackers, like, you know, right on the front, it has a good source of calcium and nice animals and looks all happy, nice scene. It's kind of like a drug commercial, right? Where you got like a nice happy picture painted as they're reading off all the terrible side effects. But let's look at the ingredients. Number one, and it always goes most to least, you have enriched wheat flour, so processed grains, right? Which is pure sugar. The only, what wheat flour is just sugar bound together, right? So it's like one quick digestive step and it breaks it apart into sugars. But within wheat, there's also gluten and gliadin and phytic acid and a lot of things that cause digestive issues and distress and damage in people. That's not good for them. Right, so that's just the first one. And then you're moving on, well, and then after it, you have niacin, iron, thiamine. So they're synthetic vitamins. So they add like cheap synthetic vitamins in with the sugar. They enrich it. That's what enrich means. They add synthetic vitamins just so they can put on the label like iron, right? The next thing, the next ingredient is sugar. You know what that is. Then the next one is canola oil, which is a seed that's chemically processed to pull the oils out. It's a processed, refined, terribly unhealthy oil that I would never use in my home and never recommend, right? That's one of the things in the trident. The next is yellow corn flour, which is more sugar, and then dextrose, which is sugar, and fructose, which is another type of sugar. And then they add calcium carbonate, which is limestone, which is, it's rock, right? It's not something you're gonna absorb and it's good for your bones, but they add the calcium carbonate, one, to help with, I'm assuming, like the physical characteristics of the cookie or cracker, but then they can write on the label, good source of calcium, even though you're not gonna absorb any of this stuff. By the way, so they add like this calcium, but when you eat wheat on a consistent basis, it's got this thing called phytic acid, right? So if you eat consistent phytic acid without good sources of vitamin C, that phytic acid will bind to the calcium, the iron, the magnesium, the phosphorus that they add in there and leach it from your body. Which is why a lot of people are iron deficient and calcium deficient. And it's not because they're not eating enough, it's because they're eating so many grains that are actually leaching it from your body. I mean, it's terrible. Then you have baking soda, that's fine. And then at the very end, artificial flavor. Well, yeah, this stuff tastes terrible. So the only way to make it remotely palatable is to add some artificial flavor so you can choke the stuff down, right? So it's a terrible, terrible thing that I wouldn't feed it to dogs, right? Like if you gave this to dogs on a consistent basis, it would make them sick. And it's not meant for people either, right? It's like, oh, what about whole grain animal crackers? So you agreed that refined grains are bad, right? No one's gonna say, I don't think, unless you're really foolish, that refined grains are good, right? So refined grains are bad. What can you add to a bad to make it good? You can't. Whole grain wheat is just a better bad, right? The only difference really is there's a little bit of fiber with it, but it's the wrong kind of fiber. Like the really good fiber that benefits us is water-soluble fiber, which you get from fruits and vegetables, which is what I recommend as healthy snacks. So, like, what are better options than this? Just Google my name and healthy snacks or school snacks, and an article will pop up, and I'll show you what I choose to bring for my kids. And this is something I would never, ever, ever bring. One last thought. I mean, just think about this. Like, would you recommend a kid have cake as a healthy snack? And I use this analogy a lot because it's so true. It's like, no, of course not, right? Cake's not good. What's cake made out of? Refined grains, sugars, baking soda. The exact same thing as this. It's just a little bit more moist, right? And a little bit more sugar. Maybe, I don't know. It's the same ingredients with slightly different ratios. So don't give your kids dried out pieces of cake that have artificial flavorings added to make it remotely palatable. Feed them something that tastes great naturally. Whole fruits, any whole fruits, right? Meat snacks are so good. Like, meat is such a healthy, filling, nutrient-dense food. Okay, another thing to think about, like, kids are growing. They're growing very, very fast. What are cells made of? What are humans made of? We're made of two things, fats and proteins, right? Fats and proteins. And here it's so nutrient deficient, and so it's like high calorie, extremely low nutrients, right? We want nutrient dense foods. Stick with whole foods. And a lot of people oh, you know, whatever, dude, relax a little bit. Here's my deal. Like, when it comes to my kids, pretty good. Like, so when it comes to my kids' health, or any kid's health, pretty good's not good enough for me. Like, how healthy do you want your kids to be? I just want to be pretty healthy. Like, okay, you know, if they're sick like half the time and not feeling well and their stomach hurts, that's fine. As long as they're pretty, it's absurd, it's ridiculous. Like, I want my kids to have optimal health. You can't have optimal health with god-awful, terrible nutrition. Not possible, right? So hopefully someone watches this and never, ever, ever buys this again. And if anyone is recommending this, I promise you, they don't know what they're talking about.